You don't need to slam the door. You don't need to explain. Sometimes the strongest move isn't confrontation, it's absence. She expected a reaction, words, emotion, something she could fight with. But instead, you gave her silence. Not out of anger, not to punish, but because you were done. This isn't the silence of defeat. It's the silence of a man who chose clarity over chaos. A man who knows his peace is too expensive to spend on someone who didn't value his presence. At first, she didn't notice. She thought it was temporary. She assumed you were just buying time to cool off, that eventually you'd reach out, explain, chase. But days passed, then weeks, and your silence remained. That's when it started to get loud. She scrolled, looking for a trace of you. Nothing. She waited for a notification. Silence. She expected a message at 2 a.m. Silence. What she didn't realize is that silence, when it comes from a place of strength, becomes a language of its own. It says, I don't need you to understand me. I understand myself. I don't need to win an argument. I already won my peace. See, most people are trained to respond to noise, to words, to drama, to conflict. They know how to play those games. But silence? Silence terrifies them because it gives them nothing to work with. No angle, no defense, no control. And that's where you reclaimed your power. You weren't performing anymore. You weren't proving anything. You weren't chasing a version of her that only existed in your hopes. You chose yourself. You chose the version of you who walks away with his dignity intact, who no longer explains his worth to those who couldn't see it. And the moment you did, the dynamic changed forever. She started to feel the weight of what she lost, but not because you shouted it, because she could no longer feel your presence. Not in her inbox, not in her feed, not in her life. Silence, when rooted in self-respect, isn't empty. It's full of boundaries, full of truth, full of the kind of message that doesn't need to be spoken. She remembered how you used to respond, how you used to show up, how you made her feel important even when she wasn't consistent. But now, there's nothing. No more checking in, no more affirmations, no more making her feel like she's still the center of a world she chose to leave. And that quiet vacuum is what breaks her. Not because you were cruel, but because you were kind, because you gave and gave until you didn't. You stopped explaining your silence. You let it speak for itself, and the echo of it followed her in every song, in every memory, in every moment she thought she had time to come back. But that door was no longer open, not slammed, not locked in anger, just closed, softly, finally. She underestimated what it meant for you to walk away without a sound. She thought silence meant there was still a chance, but your silence wasn't hesitation, it was the end. A calm, grounded, unapologetic end. And that's when she knew you were never going to be the same man again. Not for her, not for anyone who made you feel like you were an option. You didn't just go silent. You disappeared into self-respect. You evolved in peace. And now, the version of you that once waited for her reply no longer exists. She may reach out eventually, a casual message, a memory disguised as a question, something like, hey, I saw this and thought of you. But you won't bite because you've seen what silence can do. Not to her, to you. What it gave you, how it stripped away all the noise, all the illusion, all the chasing. It gave you space to breathe, to rebuild, to become dangerous in your stillness. Most people think power is loud. They think it roars, demands, dominates. But the most intimidating kind of power, the kind that doesn't announce itself, the kind that doesn't chase what walks away, the kind that doesn't return a message, not because it's angry, but because it's healed. She'll wonder if you're still hurt. You're not. You're finished. She'll wonder if you've moved on. You have, from needing closure, from trying to fix someone who didn't want to be held. And now her thoughts become the only place you still live. But you're already somewhere else, not in another woman, not in revenge, but in purpose. You've shifted from reaction to direction, from proving to protecting, from being available to being sovereign. That's what happens when a man goes silent, not out of spite, but out of growth. He becomes untouchable, not because he hides, but because he no longer places his worth in someone else's hands. You no longer speak because she doesn't listen. You no longer reach because you've learned to stand alone. And in that stillness, there's no emptiness. There's only peace. A peace she will never understand because she was never willing to sit with silence long enough to find her own. But you did, and it made you unshakable. There will come a moment, maybe late at night, maybe when everything else in her life feels quiet, when she reaches for her phone out of habit. She'll scroll, she'll hesitate, she'll almost type your name, but she won't, because she'll remember, you didn't just go silent, you vanished with dignity, no messy exit, no final plea, just absence. And that absence speaks louder than any closure she ever expected. She'll replay the last conversation, trying to find clues. She'll analyze your silence like a puzzle she can't solve. But the truth is simple. You were never waiting. You were deciding to stop explaining your worth, deciding to stop auditioning for a role she kept rewriting, deciding that your energy is not for sale. And now your stillness makes her restless, because silence is a mirror. It forces people to sit with themselves, and she doesn't like what she sees without your attention softening the reflection. You gave her something real, not gifts, not promises, presence. And when that presence is gone, it leaves a hollow echo nothing else can fill. She might try to replace you, she might chase the distraction, but deep down, she'll know it's not about missing a man, it's about missing the man who chose not to explain his exit. She expected drama, she expected noise, but you walked away quietly, and that's what haunts her. Once tasted, never chases chaos again. And you've chosen peace like a discipline. You've built a silence so powerful it's become your shield, not because you fear connection, but because you've learned not to waste it. Not everyone deserves to hear your voice. Not everyone has earned the weight of your attention. And now, every second you remain silent, you remind her of the value she couldn't see until it was gone. She'll tell herself stories to soften the blow. Maybe you were scared, maybe you're still hurting, maybe deep down you're just waiting for the right moment to reach out. But the truth will settle in eventually. You're not coming back. Not because you hate her, not because you want revenge, but because you've outgrown the need to be seen by someone who never truly looked. That's what makes it permanent. Not the silence itself, but the calm behind it. The way you carry it like armor, not a wound. There's no more performance. No more hoping she'll notice your effort. No more responding to breadcrumbs like they're invitations. You are done performing emotional labor for someone who clocked out when it mattered most. Because now you understand. Real connection doesn't need convincing. Respect doesn't require reminders. And love that's genuine never makes you beg for acknowledgement. Your absence is not a strategy. It's a standard. It says, if you can walk away from me, you can live without me. And that's exactly what she's forced to do now. While she revisits the what ifs, you're building your what's next. You've stopped wondering if she regrets it. You've stopped checking who views your stories. You've stopped leaving doors half open for people who slam them first. Because peace doesn't share space with desperation. And you're no longer starving for the crumbs of attention you used to mistake for affection. You used to send messages to explain. Now your silence says it all. I was never too much. You were just too little for what I offer. And the man who knows that, he doesn't need to say a word. His life becomes the answer. His growth becomes the echo. And that silence, it never fades. You stopped asking questions the moment you realized the answer wouldn't change the outcome. No more wondering why she let go so easily. No more digging through the past for a different ending. That version of you, the one who clung to possibility, is gone. You don't need closure from someone who couldn't handle your presence. You created your own. Quiet, solid, final. The world tells men to speak, to plead, to explain their pain so it can be validated. But Stoic men know better. They understand that validation from someone who devalued you is just another form of dependency. And they don't beg for what they already carry within. She may tell others he just disappeared, he didn't even say goodbye. But that's not the full story. You didn't disappear. You just stopped showing up where you were unwelcome. You didn't say goodbye because everything you did before that already said it. Every compromise, every attempt, every overlooked red flag. They were all goodbyes she never heard because she was too busy listening to her own ego. Now in your absence, she hears them all, loud, clear, unavoidable. You didn't become silent overnight. It built slowly. With every moment you felt unheard, with every time your needs were dismissed, with every piece of yourself you gave, hoping it would be enough. Until one day you had nothing left to offer, not out of bitterness, out of truth. And that's the difference between being quiet and being finished. She thought silence was passive. She thought it meant you were weak, waiting. But silence, when chosen, is power. You're not hiding. You're healing. You're not lost. You're aligned. You're not broken. You're becoming. And while she tries to make sense of the stillness, you've already turned the page. You're no longer a chapter in her story. You're the author of your own. And this next part, it begins without her. There's a shift that happens when you stop waiting. Not just for her message, for the apology, for the realization. You stop waiting for someone to finally see your worth because you've already seen it yourself. And that shift, that internal turn, changes everything. You wake up with focus. You move without hesitation. You no longer carry the weight of proving yourself to someone who dropped you without thinking twice. And what used to hurt now fuels you. That's the secret. Pain isn't the enemy. Attachment is. Once you detach from needing her to understand, needing her to regret, needing her to come back, you're free, not numb, clear. You used to replay her words, now you replay your goals. You used to measure your day by her attention. Now your time is too expensive for anyone who doesn't invest in it. And when that clarity settles in, something rare happens. You stop chasing peace because you've become it. You no longer post to be seen. You no longer respond just to keep a connection alive that's already dead. You don't explain your silence. You embody it. Every move you make now, it's for you, for your growth, for your discipline, for the man you're becoming when no one's watching. And the irony? She might watch from a distance. She might keep checking in subtle ways, but she'll never say it out loud. Not the way she's thinking it. He looks different. He doesn't even flinch at my name. He's unreachable. And that's not a game. That's evolution. Because you didn't just move on, you moved up to a level where she no longer has access. Not out of cruelty, out of standard. She used to be the storm. Now she's just noise. Background to a life that's moved beyond her. And the deeper you go into your silence, the louder your life becomes. Not in volume, in meaning. You've become a man who doesn't respond with emotion, but with elevation. A man who doesn't argue, he ascends. A man who doesn't return because his path no longer circles back. And she'll feel that, in ways she can't express, in places even she didn't expect. Not because you tried to haunt her, but because you refused to be haunted. Your silence was never revenge, it was a boundary, and now it's a legacy. At some point, she'll try to rewrite the story, not with you, but in her own mind, to protect her pride, to soften the ache. She'll say, he changed. He was never really all in. He just disappeared. But deep down, she knows. You didn't vanish out of nowhere. You faded in stages. Each unanswered need, each overlooked effort, each silent moment when you were right there and she didn't see you. Your disappearance wasn't a betrayal. It was the result of hers. And what she calls silence, you call survival. You learned to stop offering your voice to people who only listened when it suited them. You stopped handing out explanations like they were owed. You realized that sometimes no answer is the only answer with dignity left intact. And now, her memories will speak louder than your words ever could. She'll revisit moments. The way you looked at her when you believed in her. The way you still showed up, even when she didn't. The way your presence made her feel safe until she mistook it for weakness. But those memories are hers to carry now, not yours to relive. You've emptied your emotional backpack. You travel light, free, focused. No more dragging the weight of what could have been. No more standing in emotional purgatory, waiting for someone to choose you like you weren't already enough. And here's the hard truth she never expected. You became better in her absence. not out of spite, but because without the noise, you finally heard your own voice again. You didn't evolve to make her look back. You evolved because staying the same was killing your spirit. And now your silence, it's not just the absence of words, it's a way of living. It's a refusal to beg, a refusal to break, a refusal to shrink. You built a life so quiet it commands attention, so grounded it can't be shaken, so powerful it doesn't chase, it attracts. And the man you are now? He doesn't flinch at a name, he doesn't rewind, he doesn't hope for closure. He's already closed the chapter with silence, with discipline, with grace. And if she ever stumbles across your name again, she won't remember a goodbye. She'll remember an echo, one that started when you stopped speaking and never faded. You didn't become unforgettable by trying to be remembered. You became unforgettable the moment you stopped explaining your worth. The moment you chose the quiet path, the one few men dare to walk. Because it's not easy. It means sitting with your pain in solitude. It means watching someone throw away what you built and still refusing to throw yourself away with it. It means burning in silence and using that fire to forge something stronger. You didn't lose her. You lost the version of yourself that needed to be chosen. And what you gained? That can't be measured. You gained presence. You gained self-respect. You gained a standard so unshakable, even your silence feels like a boundary carved in stone. Let her wonder. Let the world talk. You don't owe anyone the story of your healing. You don't perform anymore. You build, quietly, brutally, relentlessly. And in a world where everyone is screaming to be seen, you stand out by being still, by being unbothered, by being so deeply rooted in who you are that no storm can reach your core. This is how legacy begins, not with noise, not with a grand speech, but with a man who walks away without looking back. A man who knows that real power is felt, not heard. That truth doesn't argue. It just exists. Solid. Unapologetic. She'll feel that truth every time she hears your name. Every time she sits with someone new and realizes they don't hold her accountable the way you did. They don't challenge her softness the way you did. They don't have the depth, the weight, the presence. Because you weren't just a man. You were the man. The one who walked in silence but left an echo. And now that you've gone silent, not in hiding but in mastery, you've become something she'll never forget. So let that be your final move. Live so intentionally, love so wisely, grow so ruthlessly, that your silence isn't just what ends the chapter, it's what defines the whole story. You were never just quiet, you were becoming a legacy.